We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside. Or maybe you're in the mood for seafood. Big Sur Oyster Bar has fresh seafood prepared right before your eyes. Savor freshly shucked oysters, crab legs jambalaya, shrimp and lobster. Beers on tap and a selection of fine wines are perfect to pair with your seafood favorite. Whether lunch or dinner, you'll love this fun atmosphere, located just off the casino floor. Ready to shake things up? Step back in time and treat yourself to one of the oldest restaurant chains in the country. Steak and Shake, famous for original mouth-watering steak burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes in a variety of flavors. For some old-fashioned fun, try Steak and Shake.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in. It is Sports by the Book Football Frenzy on a Friday. Hope you had a fantastic New Year. I'm Jeff Parles, thrilled to be with you as always. And to my left, two Hall of Famers. We'll have a third one in a little bit. Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo, alongside. No, Chris, we are playing today. We are playing today, the South Point studio. Yeah. So it's great to have you both
every
in.
Day.
We'll see Jimmy in about 15 minutes from now. Let's start some college football here before we get into Week 18 in the NFL, which I know is a beloved week for you guys behind the counter, the final week of the NFL season.
You're being very tongue-in-cheek.
What makes you say that?
Oh, we don't know who's playing anything yet. You know.
We have one game where we know both teams will be full throttle. Other than that,
I think we got two. Cincinnati
and Pittsburgh, which we'll get to later. There was a bunch of we talked about it on Monday. Some people didn't realize, at least initially, how important that game is for Pittsburgh. But once it was realized, boy, it's a huge game for the Steelers. Even though the Bengals are playing for their postseason lives, and they only need the New York Jets and the Kansas City Chiefs starting Carson Wentz to win in order to get there. But we'll get to that a little bit later. I want to start with the college football because we have our Final Four. Mm-hmm. And at least want to start off with the unique situation after the tragedy in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. The game got moved from New Year's Day to yesterday, the 2nd. Every book handles it differently. How did you handle the situation of the date of the game moving?
Well, we have to go by our house rules. And I said this before. I don't know if I said it on the air, but it's a huge pain in the ass for me. But let's keep things in perspective. There's a lot of people that passed away.
Oh, yeah.
There's horrible. More that were injured. So, yeah, it was a pain for me and for probably everybody that bet the game. But, there's worse things. God knows. Anyway, we had to stick by our house rules, which is games must be played on the date specified. Now, I had a lot of beefs from people, and I understand from their point of view, because a lot of guys, we've had this game up for a little while, and guys are maybe out of town and that sort of thing, and we had people that maybe just didn't know. But that rule is in there. It doesn't just protect the books, it also protects the players. And I was reminded this morning of the Buffalo game. Jeff, do you remember, was it last year or 2 years ago? I think it was last year. They had a game where the total dropped to 33-32 because of the bad weather, the terribly.
And then they moved the game.
Yeah. So for us, that was protection of the. I didn't get any complaints that day.
No,
that was a protection of the player. Because they moved it to the next day, and it went way over that 32. It was just a regular game.
I think it went over the regular like total easily. Yeah.
So, I mean, then some of the places in town did not have that rule in place. And I was talking to Joe Holler from behind there. He bet the game under when he saw all that stuff happening. Then they move it one day. Well, of course, he lost his bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he says he's still bitter about that. So the rules are in place, and a couple people talked to me. I says, listen, this is not debatable. This is the rule. We have to stick by the rule. And I'm going to tell you one time, and the gaming will tell you, you can. What's the word? You could like overrule the rule, but if you have it prominently displayed on your sheets and on your tickets and all that other stuff. However, there was, I want to say 2004, there was either a World Series or a playoff game in baseball, and I put up, and it was one of those days. It was raining all day. We didn't know if the game was going to get in or not. So I put on the board, put on the sheets, put on the tickets, game action whenever played. But I had the same rule that we have here. They moved the game. Everybody with a losing ticket came in to cash their ticket. And guess what? Gaming ruled in their favor. I mean, it was a disaster for me, as was everything that I touched at the Golden Nugget. Everything was terrible. But that was one of them. So you really can't change the rules. I mean, you can't change midstream, even though, like I said, gaming says on some things you can't. But, if it comes up, the gaming has a good chance of ruling against you, like they did rule against me one time many years ago. So you can't change midstream. You have to stick by your rule.
You have to be consistent. At the end of the day, consistency is what's going to be ruled on, to Chris's point. So, and again, those rules are there. Somebody's always going to benefit. Somebody's always going to complain.
Exactly.
Oh,
and
of course.
that's just the nature of the business. So we've been dealing with this for a long time. It's unfortunate. Listen, we don't like it. We don't like it when that happens. But again, what's most important is your hearts, your thoughts and prayers have to go out to the victims, those that are injured, and to the city of New Orleans, and that's something that far exceeds games, betting, and house rules.
No artful way to really segue.
No, not really.
But to go to the results on the field, so just remember this first year of this 12-team playoffs, I think will be probably a once-in-a-lifetime deal here where all 4 bye teams lose. All 4 bye teams closed an underdog also in those games. So favorites were 4-0 straight up. Yeah. The only one who didn't cover was Texas, which was what a game that turned into out of nothing.
I didn't know her. But by the way, the whole tournament, the favorites are 7-1.
Yeah, only one Texas's non-cover against ASU is the only closing favorite not to cover. Yes, I know Georgia was favored for a portion there, but Notre Dame closed a 1.5-point favorite. And here you go where, look, I know it's 5, 6, 7, 8 based off what the bracket is. It's 3, 4, 5, 6 based off the committee's rankings. I mean, this is a heck of a Final Four that we ended up getting. And Chris, Vinny, just to quickly go through it, that the game on the bottom right now, we'll start with, this is the game on I believe this is Friday, the Cotton Bowl with Ohio State. And geez, if Ohio State's going to show like they did in that first half against Oregon, good luck to everybody left. But 6.5-point favorites with Ohio State. It's almost, we talked about the market overreacting to the Michigan game against Ohio State, against Tennessee. They won by 1 million. Corrected itself in the Oregon game. They won by 1 million again. Now I think we're almost at the point where it's overcorrected almost too much in Ohio State's favor. But I understand why the bettors have taken this number to 6.5, Chris.
Well, I would disagree with you. And I'll tell you why. I've had Ohio State at the top of my rankings all year. And we were on with Bear, Chris Felica. Yep. Well, hopefully, let's get him on again next week.
We will.
Yeah. And I told Bear, and he kind of agreed with me. I said, I just tossed the Michigan game.
Sure.
I ignored that in my rankings. Those things can happen. I mean, they were open at 23-point favorite. They went down to 19. Listen, they got outplayed. They got out everything that day. But I know the kind of talent and even the coaching. And I know, he gets, Day gets his raps against him, but he's a hell of a coach. He really is. And he's got Chip Kelly up in the booth. It's a great coaching staff. I just tossed the game. And I think really what we're seeing now is the Ohio State I expected to see all year, which is why I had them in Georgia in that one prop versus the rest of the field, which Bear bet those two. Well, he's
in good shape right now.
Yeah, he didn't look so good for a while, but he looks pretty damn good right now.
Yeah.
So anyway, I really like Ohio State in this game. But listen, I mean, did you ever watch a Saturday of college football?
A 6.5 point favorite.
6.5 points favorites lose all the time. You know, it's just what happens. You know, but I do think this is the right betting number. And listen, if he gets to 7, which I think I might, then I think that would probably be a good take.
Don't blink.
Yeah, I'm with you, Vinny.
7. But by the way, the thing about it is too. You look at this Ohio State. People thought it was high to open at 6, but the bettors have spoken and now pushed it to 6.5. And by the way, so they were up 34-0. Does that mean that Oregon really shouldn't have been in the playoff too? We had all of that reaction about the blowouts in the first game, but we also talked about with the Bear that football more than any other sport it's about being in a rhythm on a weekly basis. I think that the rest probably worked against some of these teams because all 4 of them got beat. So that's something to consider too. But again, all of that said, we're not going to sit here and critique who got in and who didn't. And give us the games, we'll give you the numbers, and then you decide on what you want to do with it. But I still believe too that at some point, before anything else, the adjustment that's going to be made with this tournament, with this playoff, is going to be a reseeding review.
Hang on, though. I just found out this morning.
Go ahead.
To reseed, all the commissioners and all that, whoever's on the committee, has to have a unanimous opinion.
So
if you're Mountain West, I don't think you're voting that way.
On a weekly basis
for this next year. So they set this is the criteria for the first 2 years. Now they can't overrule it. This was Heather Dinich reporting, so I'm just repeating what she said. So the whoever's involved in creating this to change the seating format just this first year would need a unanimous vote. Hey, you might get that. Maybe the Mountain West would say, "Yeah, you're probably right."
Well, I
but
think
they might not.
Well, they weren't going to have a 12-team playoff for another couple of years either, right?
Now she said that in 26. Everything's open for 26.
26 is going to be 14. I feel pretty confident at that.
It might be 16.
Could very easily. Regardless, it'll be more.
I think the seeding will definitely change to 26. That still might change this next year.
Yeah.
But it takes a unanimous approval, and I don't think you're going to get that.
Yeah. The only thing with the reseed is you would have ended up with the exact bracket that you ended up with. The bigger thing is who gets the buys more so than anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ohio State's route would have been different.
Oh well, I mean, yeah. Would have been if we were just going off straight seeding. Oregon's 1, Georgia's 2, Texas is 3, Penn State is 4. I mean, it's a whole different looking bracket if that ends up being the case. Going to the other game real quick before our friend Jimmy gets in. What a way to rekindle the Penn State Notre Dame rivalry that has been dormant now for quite some time.
I remember them coming up to Penn State and it was snowing and everything else. I think Jerome Bettis.
Bino Cook was great, wasn't he?
Bino, somebody, that John Lukács who wrote that book about Bino, but Dino would think this was Armageddon. He's got his 2 most hated teams. Notre Dame. He can't say Notre Dame and Penn State. So Bino would hate it.
It's the 20th meeting ever between these two teams. They're 9-9-1 against each other.
Is that right?
Yep.
Wow.
Haven't played since 07, which was a Penn State.
07, I thought it was even before that.
Yeah, Penn State won by 3 touchdowns in that game back in 07. Now, granted, that was when Notre Dame was kind of lost as a football program. But Chris, you guys are market high on this, by the way, with Notre Dame at 2.5. And quite frankly, I'd rather be market high on Notre Dame as opposed to not at this point.
Listen, everybody knows, anybody that's followed me and the show and everything, I'm a Penn State fan. I wear my Penn State shirt. I am not a Notre Dame fan by any stretch of the imagination. However, Jeff, business is business.
Yeah.
And I got to go by my numbers. And in all honesty, I have not been all that impressed with Penn State all year. They've just not. My ratings were a lot lower than what the committees and the polls and all that other stuff. And Notre Dame, of course, they lost the one game to Northern Illinois. But like Vinny likes to say, they'd be a much bigger favorite now.
Oh, now we'd be pushing 40 at this point, right?
40.
Yeah.
But I have been. Now, the fact is, Notre Dame was not all that impressive. They scored on a kick return. They had a 14-yard drive or whatever it was for one of their touchdowns. But I do think, as I've watched Notre Dame throughout the course of the year, I've had them pretty highly rated. And Jeff, I'll tell you, pure power rating wise, I make Notre Dame a 4-point favorite. That might be a little high.
You know what?
That's why I mark it high.
I actually like your number, your 4 better, honestly.
I've heard that line
Yeah, I
before.
like your number better. I do. I'll just counter what you said with maybe not being the most impressive thing with Notre Dame. And short field, kick return, really flipped that game on his head. That defense is awesome. Defense is awesome.
With some injuries incurred yesterday.
Even with the injury, even without their monster D tackle yesterday, they still look great. I will throw one thing at both of you. I think this whole game could very easily be handicapped in one way. Is Abdul Carter going to be able to play?
That's another thing. He looked okay on the sideline, but I don't know what that means. He never came back in the game after the first quarter. Jeff, we talked about that. I believe it was this show. I think he's probably going to be like the number 4 choice in the draft. I mean, maybe, may not be. I don't know. I'm not a draft expert. I just know what I see. I think the guy's a hell of a player, but I don't know. Is he going to be 100%?
Well,
I don't know.
According to Coach Franklin, he was walking around campus yesterday and he looked great. I don't think he was tackling anybody in the quad, but
be on the lookout in the quad, Vinny.
So be careful.
It's cold there.
It's cold there.
Was he chasing any of the girls, Vinny? And then that might show
that report ended right there after
right.
the quad. I didn't get further details, but the interesting thing about this, Trevor, you pointed out at South Point at 2.5 is market high. It hasn't been gobbled. It's a point higher.
No.
So what does that tell you, right?
I know what it tells me.
So now, again, so people say, why didn't you open at 4? If that's your because you see what market value is.
So I'm hoping they take the 2.5.
You see and you know what? I don't think it'll get to 4, but if it gets to 3, it'll be a take. But the fact that it has now stood for almost 24 hours, a full point higher, tells you that anybody looking to take Penn State is anticipating and thinking that it'll go to 3, and that's when it'll be taken.
Just think the Irish are better. I think that's what it all. Like I said, I like your number better. Really do, Chris.
Say that, believe me.
Yeah, and regardless of what we get in the final, I mean, what a.
Oh yeah,
blue blood central here in these final 4.
Let's not forget Texas.
Yeah, I mean Texas
got more money than anybody.
Well, remember Texas is also the favorite going into this round to win a national championship.
People ask me at the beginning of the tournament, who do you like? I like Texas.
Yeah, and
I don't.
Yeah, well, again, the way the Buckeyes have looked in these first 2 games, if this version of the Ohio State Buckeyes shows up 2 more times, they're lifting the trophy when it's all said and done.
Part of when guys were asking me, you had to have Ohio State beat Oregon, which, I like them. I made the number 3. And again, we're talking about 6-point favorites losing all the time. 3-point favorites really lose all the time. It's just a tougher path than what Texas had.
Whatever happens with the next 2, with Ohio State, they absolutely have overcome that Michigan game.
Oh, yeah.
Period. And I think that it's reignited this team and this program, and maybe a little too tight. You talk about it being, a team being in another team's head. I think that was the case there. If you notice the way they've played, much looser, much freer, much more fluid in what they've done in the last couple of games. So that just a little aside.
Well, Michigan only has to play Alabama and Ohio State, and they go undefeated, right? I mean, that's basically it at this point with that monster upset in Tampa earlier in the week. Which
by the way, speaking of upsets, the card.
Really,
right,
on the card,
get
Chris.
Off the college subject.
Okay, so we got one guy with Virginia Tech tonight. That if he wins, he goes undefeated. He takes down down the whole 25,000 himself. Now, if he loses, he's still getting half the pot, and then one guy has one loss, and he has Minnesota. So obviously the guy with Virginia Tech, if he loses tonight, he'll have one loss as well. So that guy's in good shape. He's either going to make 25 or 12-5.
Yeah, they're both on staff now.
I was going to say the fact. I mean, going undefeated with all the carnage that happened. By the way, the best one in the corner over there right now that we have for our group is 7-7.
That's the best.
That's the best card over there. Yeah. And by the way, had the best card of all of us, and had 10 wins through 14 games.
There you go. That's a perfect card. With the first 4 games being the underdogs sweeping the whole left side. Look at that.
And you had a 16.5 point favorite win outright too with Michigan. I mean, it's crazy. All right, let's take a quick break. Jimmy Vacarro joins us when we get back, and then we get into the fun of Week 18 in the NFL, including a 20-point favorite. Yes, perfect. When we get back, Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Welcome back in. It is Sports by the Book Football Frenzy on a Friday. Jeff Parles here. Happy to be with you. And now we got Chris Andrews, we got Vinny Magliuo, and to my left, the one and only Jimmy Vacarro.
Well, gentlemen, it's a pleasure to see you. You know, we're changed up in like 15, 20 minutes here. A lot of people have asked questions to you and all these years. And obviously now you're catching up to what it was like way back when. Another year has gone. Where were you when it started? I landed in 1975. And then I started for a guy named Michael Gaughn. And then obviously we were fortunate being what you would consider the new wave of sports betting. It was really we grew up as kids, it was like, yeah, pain in the ass, get lost. I ain't going to do anything for you. It's a business now and everything has to change. And obviously Chris and Vinny too, going to these things that, what do we need to do? How do we need to change it? What can we give out? Whatever. And this basically was Michael Gaughn's idea, obviously having a contest. Now, here it is some almost 50 years later. I mean, downtown, you're giving away $1,400,000. Now, we're at a big deal with the $75,000. And so what I'm trying to say is it's like everything we have done, being a part of this crazy racket that we're in. So you look back and you say to yourself, what happened? Now, when I first came, remember, there was no sports books in the casinos. It was still what you would call like the up-and-comers, whatever. So everything that you did way back when, you did out of the Gene May days, whatever, and the Churchill Downs, whatever. So then when it came where they passed a law that we could do it, that's when the casinos started to jump in. And we were probably one of the first ones to do that because we did everything in the early 80s. So here it is right now. This thing was called the Royal Inn Casino. Obviously, pick the pros. Remember, no point spreads. They were just simply like pick it. And the first prize was, as you can see, $25,000, which is not that much. Now, the last place was $5,000, and we give a weekly, whatever you could do with the weekly contest. We did it. So and then we look around, and things have changed drastically. I know Chris went north, and obviously made a big imprint up there. Vincenz, you landed. You're behind it.
I bought that off of Michael for $1.
What's that?
I bought the rights to that name and the whole concept for $1. He sold it to me for $1.
Oh yeah. When you went to Northern Nevada, like how many places did you take over, or what was it? Just
eventually I took over 28.
28.
But I got there Johns. We had 2 windows in the sports book.
Okay.
And then a cashier. If you remember, everything was separate at that time. Mm-hmm. 2 windows sports book, 1 cashier, 3 race windows. That was a whole book.
That was 1980, Chris?
81. And then the whole sports book couldn't have been 2,000 square feet.
Wow.
Now,
Something like that.
Jimmy, that picture, that's the Royal Inn one?
Yeah.
Well, there you go, right
So
on
we
our
got it on
screen
the
right
screen.
now.
There it is, right
So
there.
that's the Royal Inn. So that's 1978. That's the year that I met Jimmy. That's the year I started at the Royal Inn. And then a year later, we moved to the Barbary. We opened the Barbary Coast.
Yeah, we sure did.
Which is now some other name. And,
Well, a little history with this is kind of funny. The Royal Inn Casino. Obviously, Michael had the casino, just the casino, not the hotel. So we had the contest, whatever. So here it is. So now we moved to up the street to the Barbary Coast. So we got rid of some of these things because it was too much to handle. Debbie Reynolds bought the Royal Inn Casino way back when. Debbie Reynolds, she ain't got a clue what she was doing, but at that time, she had a husband who just kept pushing. They bought the Royal Inn Casino, the whole thing, the hotel and the casino and everything else, and they went broke, I think, in 2 years. Yeah. He broke
I know
her.
she faced bankruptcy. I know that.
What's that, Chris?
I know she faced bankruptcy at one point.
Wow, yeah.
Debbie Reynolds Hollywood Casino, right?
And then now I know the names, but I don't know the people. The people last name was Nigro. They had something in northern Nevada where they were just simply all gaming, whatever. But they bought her out. At least they made a future out of it, and they did relatively well. But Debbie Reynolds, I mean, you could see her dancing across the screen. But like, did she know what to do with a teaser? That's a different question, So what are you going to do? So here we are. So now we move up. So now we're to the point we're really rolling. Obviously, but it's a little different. Let me tell you out there when you had to deal with the government or like taxing or whatever. How about when you had to start dealing? Because now gaming started to look at what the hell is going on. These people are doing this or doing that. Is it okay to do it? So we had to simply. Everything that we did had to be documented somewhere in order to to keep the ship going, because that's the way it was. Well, matter of fact, that's the way it is right now, only 10 times worse than it was. Yeah. Chris, you're the boss, but I know every now and then, you just shake your head and say, what the hell I got to do next? But you got to do it next. I mean, everything is.
We're the one place in the casino that every transaction is documented.
Wow.
They don't. You're at the dice pit. That was like, okay, he's 7'd out.
Forget it. It would take 30 minutes each roll.
But every transaction in here is documented. Every single one. Every single one.
Vincenz, now when Cleopatra's Barge opened up, they were a sports book till you built the sports, right? Or was it the other way around?
It was a kiosk right outside of Cleopatra's Barge at Caesar's Palace in 1985. Well, they built the actual sports book behind it. It was so much money. When in that kiosk, they couldn't keep it in the till. The writer, there were 2 or 3 writers in there, and it was I think it was octagonal. And and
what was that?
It was shaped like an octagon.
Yeah, right.
So it was between Cleopatra's Barge and Wingy's snack bar.
Gruber.
Wingy Gruber. And they called him Wingy because he had a bad wing. So, but there was so much money, and it was all cash at the time, that the writers were literally standing in. They couldn't fit it all in the till, and they would stand in it up to their shins.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember going in there one time, and I had to make a fairly large bet for me, right. Like $3,000, and I'm saying the hell they put in that money? Geez, I'm thinking I should have just robbed.
Just got to the point. I mean, there were times when the writers, because security couldn't keep up, they would count the money and they were just going to drop it.
And Wingy Gruber, let's call it like it is, he was sent here from some people in New York to keep his eyes open. Yeah. Now I wonder who could have been watching things like that, because Wingy had the bad hand, arm, whatever it was, but he was always there, and he did that little.
Always on duty.
Had that little place you could buy a hamburger or
Wingy's.
Yeah, but right in the sports book almost, right?
Yeah, it was right next to it. Yeah, right next to it. You couldn't
All right,
miss
so
it.
who was the crew when you guys first opened up?
Well, Art was there, Chris's cousin Art Manteris. John Van Ryan was there.
Eddie Clark
ran the race book, and Lou D'Amico was the sports book manager.
Where's
Lou D'Amico came from Churchill, and then they hired a young administrative operator to help with the board, because at that time nothing was interfaced. You had to do everything manually, okay? And so There was a young man who recently moved to Las Vegas from the Bronx, New York, in taking care of those features. Rich Bachelari. That's where I met Richie.
Now,
how about, didn't you have a young lady, Yolanda Acuna, too?
Yeah.
Yoli was.
she later?
No, she was
later.
in
Northern Nevada.
She
first.
was
worked
with
for me in
you,
Northern
and then she
Nevada,
went. I think she came to the Stardust, and then she went to, or was it the
you
other
might-
way around? No, she went to the Stardust. Then she, I think, went to you, Chris. Her first job was at the Stardust. Then she went up north with you. Then
I
she
think you're
got
right, yeah.
recruited by Arthur,
Yeah.
and then Jimmy.
Yeah,
Jimmy
and then Arthur called
was
me
a
and said,
free
"Hey, what are
agent."
you doing?" I said, "Art, she wanted to come here."
Yeah, Art should have paid her a little
Yeah.
more. Ed.
She
You know,
She
that's
went.
what it
She
came
was
down
there
to.
with Art from
She
'86.
was on the NIL.
Now,
86 to '89.
who was the race book manager and the separate, right? Race and sport. You had the separate.
Eddie Clark.
Eddie Clark was the boss of the whole thing.
No, he was a race book manager.
Okay.
He was. We had John Van Ryan left, and then they didn't replace him. It was Lou and Eddie.
Who was the big boss upstairs when you took over?
Terry
Was it-
Laney, right?
Well, no, Terry.
Or Reichardt's?
Right, Clark. Was he the
well,
boss?
he came in '86, but he. I'll think of it. I'll think of his name when in a minute. But Dan came in the 1986 from the Waldorf Astoria.
The guy that started the boxing was, what's his name? Oh man,
Bob Halloran,
oh man, what a guy!
who got scooped up by Steve Wynn. And then he was succeeded by Rich Rose.
Folks out there, listen to me. I was fortunate. You were fortunate. You were fortunate. Boxing for a 15 to 20 year period in Las Vegas, Nevada will never, ever be touched the way that it was and the way that it did in those things. Now, how, Jimmy, what do you know? Well, how do I know? Try to go to the boxing match like a half hour before you think you could get in. Try to get in.
It was Harry Wald.
Oh, that's right, Harry Wald.
Oh, when I was making that big bet at Caesars, I ran over to make a bet on one of the fights. I can't remember which one.
Wow.
But that was, like I said, it was a lot of money. I was probably hedging something else.
And we were just transitioning from handwriting tickets, which was
Oh my God!
you talk about calligraphy, and to mandated computer systems because of calligraphy. What do I mean by that?
One more.
How many
computer
ones
store.
became sevens and fours or nines and yeah.
I'll give you a computer story, and these guys know it's a trend. You would say to yourself out there listening, say, "Oh, that Jimmy ain't got a clue." It's a Sunday morning. The joint was jam-packed
Barbary
everywhere.
Coast, this was.
What's that?
Barbary Coast. Right?
Yeah, Barbary Coast. Then all of a sudden, the guy that gave us computers, they went down. There wasn't any, they were down. Now we had extra computers to handwrite, but you thought about it, the kids who got hired in that, way back when, they couldn't know how to write a ticket because everything was on the computer. So anyway, I said, what am I going to do? It looks like they were going to lynch me. They came over whatever. Jimmy, what's going on? You can't. Michael Gaughn came downstairs for a second. He said, what the fuck is going on to all of this? And everything was like crazy. Here's what happened. Michael took the computers out and put them on Flamingo out there, like right about the curb.
True story, yeah.
He's looking at me like, they're going to get me. You're just going to leave, Michael. They took the casinos. He put them down. Their answer was this. You ready? When Michael came down, he was screaming because one of the guys were here, and he says, "We don't work on Saturday and Sunday." Well, that's the way we do 99% of our business on,
True story. Yeah.
That's right.
And they said, "What, Jimmy? What are you going to do? What am I going to do? I can't even open a door, let alone fix a computer." So, we had a lot of good times. Things have changed quite a bit. Obviously, the business aspect, the gaming aspect, is now 120%. So, I had a great time. You had a great time. Wore us down a little bit, but you know what, kid? You would do it again.
Oh,
Wouldn't change a
Are
thing.
you kidding me?
Wouldn't change a thing.
All right,
Like to
I'm
get
done.
paid a little more,
You guys
but,
are done.
Thank you very much, Jimmy.
By the
Well
way,
done, Jimmy.
There's a lesson to be learned to this day. Don't mess around with Michael Gaughn and Frank
He put
Doherty.
him on Flamingo.
That is amazing.
Picked them right up out of the well,
And make sure you're working on the weekend.
Yeah.
Bye, Jones.
All right, let's go into
That
week.
was more interesting than this schedule this
Well,
week.
I
But
don't-
let's hit a couple of games.
Well, I mean, what, a 20-point line doesn't interest you, Chris?
Not that
Well,
much.
you want to
Well,
call this week 18 or week 1 of the exhibition season?
Yeah.
Well, so let's start with this. Let's start in Baltimore and Cleveland.
2 games tomorrow.
Yeah, 2 games tomorrow. They're both the AFC North games. The Ravens are hosting the Browns. Bailey Zappi is starting for the Cleveland Browns. Very simple for the Ravens. Win the game, get the 3 seed, and win the AFC North yet again with Lamar Jackson. It's up to 20. Yes, you heard me correctly. An NFL game at 20.
Yes.
Now, Chris, you and I discussed this a little bit on Frank's show earlier. I am absolutely, utterly perplexed that Dorian Thompson-Robinson can go to the bench and, quite frankly, anyone that is not named Tim Boyle comes wandering in to start for Cleveland, and the market moves at 1.5 towards Baltimore. I'm not saying I want to bet Cleveland.
Right.
I'm just saying going from DTR to Zappi against the team that's starting Zappi after benching DTR doesn't compute to me.
It doesn't. I mean, I think it's ridiculous. A 1.5 move. Bailey Zappi has played. He's not that bad. He's as good as anything Cleveland's thrown out all year, including Watson, who's making $250 million guaranteed. There's no reason for these moves. Dr. Bob, who's really not a friend of the show, but I've met Dr. Bob. He's a good guy.
Good friend of Gil's.
Really smart guy. He's famous for saying, if a team needs a game, they must not be that good. This isn't a team that needs a game, but we talked about it, and maybe we'll get to it in this segment too.
We will. We
talked about the Seattle Rams game. These numbers are just ridiculous. Some of the overreaction to some of the things that are going on, and this is not a case where the team needs a game, anything like that. It's just ridiculous. A 1.5 move because of one stiff quarterback replacing another stiff quarterback.
A 1.5 move to a 3-touchdown favorite, and against a team that once they're in control, right? Do you think how long do you think these starters are going to stick around?
I would tell you that anybody out there betting, if you want to bet the favorite, bet the first half.
Yeah, I agreed on that. And just remember, real quick, guys, one of the 3 Cleveland Brown wins this year came against the Baltimore Ravens. Just remember that.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
I mean, granted, it might have been the greatest NFL spot in history to bet on Cleveland that day because it was the first game that Deshaun Watson wasn't there.
Yeah. First half line is 12, by the way.
No, so I don't know. I mean, again, it's not that I'm interested in taking Cleveland. I mean, you're
rooting for him.
You're getting 20 in an NFL game. It's almost like you're sort of obliged to do it. Now, granted, we got beat with the Giants a few weeks ago, but my God, I mean, 20 with a 41, by the way, on the total. It's not even like it's a 49 or a 50 on the total. It's 20 and 41. It's ridiculous here.
Next.
Steelers and Bengals. You shall ask, you shall receive, Vicenz. Now, this is one of the few games on the card where both teams are playing for something here. And we discussed this on Monday, and Chris, you admitted it too, that on first glance, it's like, oh, why is this game going after Baltimore? Yeah. The Steelers have nothing to play for if the Ravens win as a 20-point favorite in the first game.
Which figures, yeah.
It's not true. Because the difference between the 5 and the 6 in the AFC is a gigantic difference. It's the difference between possibly being a favorite on the road in round 1 or being a touchdown favorite or being a touchdown underdog or more potentially in Baltimore. And we saw the Steelers play the Ravens a few weeks ago. Ravens covered a big number in that game. So the Bengals come marching to Pittsburgh. Steelers are reeling right now. Bengals need to win. And they need the Dolphins to lose to the Jets. Right now, Miami 1-point favorite. We'll get to that later. And we need the Kansas City Chiefs practice squad to beat the Denver Broncos, where Carson Wentz will start. By the way, we'll get to that game later. There are currently on the Kansas City Chief injury report 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 players, including 12 starters on that list on the injury report this week.
However, the one year Chase Daniel came in a very similar situation and won a game.
Yeah, Carson Wentz, by the way, there was a report out there from Peter Schrager that we may only see Carson Wentz for half. We might see the third quarterback, Chris Oluokun. Chris Oluokun out of Samford, not Stanford, Samford, the one in Alabama, could get some reps in the second half of the game.
Making an appearance too in one of the. We'll get there.
Yeah. But Chris, Bengals 2 with a total of 48. I mean, this is First matchup between these teams, obviously turnovers played a huge role in that one. Pittsburgh won in Cincinnati in a super high-scoring game. This is the most fascinating line, maybe of the entire month. It's a new month, but you get what I'm saying, Chris.
Yeah, I might as well say this too, because enough guys have figured this out. Although I was kidding our one friend, Mr. ACL. I said, "Would you quit telling everybody about this?" I'm getting a lot of parlays.
Yeah.
Bengals to the Chargers, which makes sense, and Raiders and Steelers to the Raiders. Now, of course, if the Steelers win, the Chargers have nothing to play for, and that's the theory behind
Position-wise, you mean? Position.
Correct. Chargers would be locked. A Steeler win locks L.A. in the 6th seed.
Right. And conversely, if the Bengals win, then the Chargers,
should play everybody. Yeah.
I've seen these things before, and tell you the truth, I think it's a good parlay if you bet it. We're just going to have to beat it. I mean, it's hard to just restrict it, and I got guys bet me 2,000-3,000, which I think is a lot. But we're taking it. I've seen these things work. I've seen these things not work. So, but I'm, like I said, I might as well tell everybody because everybody seems to know anyway. But that's not a bad parlay to put out there.
Well, the game opened 2.5, went down to 1.5. I think it had to do with maybe the Steelers, obviously being home and everything. The question is and now back up to 2. So Steeler injuries are a factor here, right? Mm-hmm. And particularly at the wide receiver position. So, Jeff, you have the injury. It's interesting too now. In the NFL, they have to put out the injury reports on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're the only league that has that as part of their protocol. But then you've got game day with the actives and inactives, and I understand that because there's game time decisions, right? In this case, we're talking about for Sunday. You've got 48 hours to clear whether it's concussion protocol or whatever the case may be, but. Steeler wideout injuries are critical here.
Yeah, Steelers a little bit healthier than they have been recently. Joey Porter, by the way, on the defensive side.
And the defensive side.
Yeah, on the defensive side, Joey Porter Jr., full participant all week.
Yeah, he's big.
No, he's a big part. Pickens is healthy now. We saw him on Christmas.
That's another big part of those 3 losses.
Justin Fields, by the way, also a full participant as well. Okay. So getting healthier.
Might be a package for him.
Yeah, on the Bengals side, really the biggest question mark, we knew Sam Hubbard wasn't going to play. The biggest question mark is Chase Brown, who, remember last Saturday, in what was just an abomination of clock management by Zach Taylor, which he ended up getting away with it, where Chase Brown didn't score, fell down awkwardly, hurt his knee. He's a game-time decision tomorrow. That's a big one because obviously we know Higgins and Chase, awesome, but Chase Brown, your number one running back with Zach Moss on the shelf, it goes off a cliff after that at the running back position for Cincinnati. Boy, I think the Bengals win, but this is like the most classic in-game game of all time, basically. Yeah. Sure. I want to see how Pittsburgh looks more so than anything. I kind of know what I'm getting out of the Bengals at this point. Burrow's going to play well. Their defense is going to do something stupid. Terrible, and it's just a matter of what am I getting out of Pittsburgh, who, again, has had a struggle the last 3 weeks once the competition has ratcheted up. All right, let's go to Sunday. Let's start in Tampa. Very simple for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who got the help they needed in the nation's capital last week in what was a really fun game, actually. Yeah. Falcon Commander game out of nothing really turned into a fun one.
It fell 6, Jeff. Keep going.
Sorry. I wasn't even thinking of it that way, Vinny. Sorry.
But go ahead.
Wait a second. Hold on. Wasn't that game close 3.5?
Yeah,
right?
But they bet the favorite.
They did
okay, all right. Sorry.
Both games. There you go.
So Tampa, regardless, by the way, still scoring against Carolina from last week. Baker Mayfield, when he's been good, has been as good as anyone in the league this year. So, Chris, this is 14 now.
Wait, you tell me he's better than Bailey Zappi?
Hey, those are two guys. By the way, I forgot to mention this with Cleveland. Since the Browns have come back into the league in 1999, Bailey Zappi, assuming he makes the start on Sunday, will be the 40th quarterback to make a start for the Browns since they've come back into the league. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the guy with the shirt that has all the quarterbacks.
He's going to need another shirt. He's going to need a second shirt.
Hey, I hope he's an extra large because he's going to need all that room.
Chris, I don't know if XL is good enough on that. All right, but Tampa here real quick. Bucks need a win. They win the South. By the way, seeding is all up in the air. We'll get to the Rams situation later, but a Tampa win and a Ram loss moves the Bucks to the 3. So that does do some seeding movement. Chris, it's 14 with the New Orleans Saints as the underdog here. Saints, by the way, starting Spencer Rattler, Derek Carr season is over, which thankfully Carr lost his one game to take over the mantle.
Did he?
Yes, he got there. He got there barely. But 14 here in this one with a total of 43.5, Chris.
We're all over the place here. We're down as low as 13, as high as 14.5. And I don't know, good business. Hopefully, just stay away from the number. By the way, in case anybody's wondering, we're taking small limits this week. We're still taking 5,000 on the sides, but we can't have full limits because some of these games we're not sure who's playing. Okay, we kind of know who's playing for the Bucs, but we have no idea who's playing for the Saints. By the way, the Saints, the last probably 3 weeks have had nothing more than like a preseason roster.
You're telling me what they did against the Raiders wasn't high quality, Chris?
That was not high quality, Jeff.
There's another high I won't say, but Chris is right. I mean, it's just the uncertainty of not only the rosters, who's playing, who's not playing, but for how long, right? I mean, so it's again, I think it's a byproduct too. There's only a couple of instances where divisional teams are playing each other here in a at the end of the season, and that's what I wish we had more of it, frankly.
So real quick. Saints draft position, a loss locks them into the top 10. Not that anyone on the Saints roster thinks that way. But, boy, Tampa needs this game desperately, and they just smashed the inferior in-division opponent. I think you're going to see another smashing here. And also, New Orleans can't score. That's the other problem here.
Just stay away from the number. That's all I ask.
I think you'll be okay in this
one.
I really
games
do.
That means something.
Oh, I know. Yeah. All right, let's. Now we get to the real fun one. Buffalo goes to Foxborough to take on the Patriots
for the second time in 3 weeks.
Second time in 3 weeks. So this one. We'll try to make sure your head doesn't spin by the end of this. Josh Allen is going to start the game to continue his consecutive starting streak. Yeah. He will probably play 3 plays and then come out of the game. Mitchell Trubisky's the backup. We expect to see him play the majority of the game, but Chris's favorite, Micah White. It got signed.
I saw they signed
got signed off their own practice squad to the active roster, so expect to see him. That's on Buffalo, by the way. Expect a lot of Buffalo starters also not to play the whole game. They'll get some reps, but not the whole thing. The Patriots hold the first pick right now in the NFL draft coming up. If they lose, the first pick is theirs. Drake May's left the game last week with a concern of concussion, came back, so cleared protocol, and then injured his hand mysteriously in practice 2 days ago. He's questionable right now. You try figuring out this game pre-flop, God bless. That's all I'll say, Chris. It's 3 with the Bills on the road. This one's bounced all over the place because of everything I just said.
Mostly 2.5, 3. Yeah. One of those games, just a 2.5, 3 game, which we face a lot. You're right, a lot of question marks, but can I just say, that all of a sudden, this New England franchise, which was the gold standard for 20 years, suddenly looks like, well, maybe that Tom Brady guy had a lot to do with it. And even Belichick, but that Tom Brady thing, I think, had a lot. And believe me, that's another guy. Not the biggest Tom Brady fan in the world either, but he certainly had a lot to say about making this franchise the gold standard for 20 years because they're no longer that.
Jeff, you said, how do you handicap it pre-flop? How do you handicap it in-game? Not knowing. If you're going to play in-game more than ever, you have to watch what's happening here and listen to what's happening and who's going to come out of games.
So I'm happy you brought that up, actually, because I think in-game, I actually think you have a shot here for one reason and one reason only. If it is obvious that Drake May is either A, not healthy, or B, has taken a bunch of gigantic hits, and the Patriots are like, you know what, believe this, we're putting % into not getting our guy hurt in a meaningless game, I think you can actually take Buffalo in game. I think the Buffalo backups are going to play hard because they haven't played a lot this year. Mm-hmm. The Patriots have the total quit factor potentially here. And look, I understand Gerard Mayo Like, again, he's maybe on the hot seat. We don't know. Might be.
After 1 year.
I don't think it's fair, but look, it's looked pretty ugly for the majority of the year. I thought it was because of the bad roster, but we'll see how it all plays out. 3 right now. Toggler, Vinny's favorite.
Thank you.
On this one.
We're obligated to have it.
For what it's worth, unlike past weeks, I have a better feeling for you guys. Because at some point, this has got to turn, right?
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. The worm does turn. I just hope I'm not fired before the worm actually turns. That's all.
So let's go to Green Bay next. The Bears enter this game on a 10-game losing streak. There we go.
Young Mr. McCormick hiding back there.
Hey, just remember the Bears. Just remember, guys, the Bears were 4-2 at one point this year.
Really?
Yes. Their last win came out of the country. That's how good everything's been. By the way, Ryan, what is it? They have not won on a road game on a Sunday since December of 2021. Is that correct? Thank you very much. Have not won
it's almost like he has that marked on a calendar or something.
So the Bears have not won a Sunday road game since the day after Christmas 2021. That's legitimately almost a whole presidential cycle ago at this point. Packers, according to what Matt LaFleur said all week, they're going to play their guys. They're going to play them pretty close to normal, if not the whole game. It's 10 because of that with a total of 41. Look, I don't care if the Packers threw Matt Flynn out there, found wherever he is at this point, Chris, and put Matt Flynn at quarterback. You're going to have to do a lot better than giving me 10 points for me to bet the Chicago Bears against the Green Bay Packers.
We got some plus 10. Some wise guys played me plus 10. You know, listen, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have strong opinions on probably every game we're going to go run down this roster. I have a couple. This is not one of them. But like I said, you can cover 10 in the NFL and never have a prayer winning that game. So just kind of be careful.
Sure.
A lot of teasers with this Packers or big teaser game this week.
10 was a take on the number, right? And in anticipation of the Packers, even what LaFleur said. If they're up, particularly, and covering in the fourth quarter, you can't keep the starters out there.
Yeah, don't believe everything these coaches tell you.
You know who was seen at Green Bay practice today? Luke Getsy.
Really?
Yeah. Hey, look, that's going to be all the guys who got fired. I mean, Getsy was there. Salah's been there for a while now. It's save your image with Matt LaFleur and company. By the way, for Green Bay, I don't think a lot of people realize this. With Washington's back-to-back wins against Philadelphia and Atlanta, if the Commanders beat the Cowboys, Green Bay is locked into the 7, which sets up a mega matchup with them in Philadelphia in round 1, which I'm sure, look, the Eagles, they'll whoever comes, they'll probably handle. But boy, that is a pretty brutal 2-7 for Philadelphia. If Green Bay, again, Packers have beaten everyone that is not an elite team this year. Right. They played all their losses against teams that are currently the 1, 2, or 5 seed in the NFC. All right, let's go to the Meadowlands next, following rotation number order here. This is a 125 Pacific start, 425 local in East Rutherford. The Jets and the Dolphins. All right, more injury fun here. So for the Dolphins, if the Dolphins win and the Broncos lose, the Miami Dolphins make the playoffs. The Miami Dolphins also likely will be without Tua Tagovailoa yet again, and the same goes for Jalen Waddle. So, yes, they handled Cleveland last week. Mm-hmm. Cleveland is very bad. The Jets are also bad. But as I've said to our friend Vicenz in the past, and I said earlier on Frank's show, no one does a better job of damaging their own draft position in a game they don't need to win than the New York Jets do. This is the classic one to me, Chris, especially with the opportunity to knock Miami out of the postseason altogether with Snoop Huntley starting instead of Tua. Miami's a 1-point favorite. That feels right. I'll be on the Jets, and I'm sure I'm gonna dislike the result regardless. Either my wallet gets hurt or the Jets hurt their draft, or well, actually, if the Jets lose, that's good.
You're going to have agita either way.
Yeah, I'm going to have agita either way.
I don't think Rodgers cares about their draft position.
Well, I know.
This
might be another factor. This could very easily be the final game of Aaron Rodgers' NFL career.
It very easily could be. Maybe. So he could be going out with a bang. He hasn't banged much lately in the last couple of weeks. That number's about right. I don't know. I mean, Huntley's not bad. He's definitely a capable quarterback. And the roster at this point is much better than the Jets, but we'll see. I mean, The number right there is just telling you it's a toss-up, and that's the way I have to see this game.
They've been betting the Jets. I think they're going to keep betting the Jets, and wouldn't shock me if they go. They'll go off the favorite in this game, especially if Tua doesn't play.
You know what? If they go off as a favorite, I definitely don't like my bet that, Vinny, because the Jets have been as bad as anyone as a favorite.
Just saying.
This year, boy, again, that the factor you did bring up, Chris, though, like this could be the last game for Aaron Rodgers in his NFL career. Like that is something. Needing one more touchdown to reach 500, by the way, for passing touchdowns.
My one friend who's a Jet hater said he wishes that they would have cut Rodgers this week just so he wouldn't get the 500.
He's not alone. Some in the fan base thought that as well.
I think he had a petition that was signed by a lot of guys.
Good. All right, let's go to Denver next. This is another 125 game. All right, guys. It's the 15-1 Kansas City Chiefs, but it's not the 15-1 Kansas City Chiefs. Here are the people that are currently either listed as out or doubtful this week for the Kansas City Chiefs. You guys ready?
No. Lenny Dawson on that list?
No, but oddly enough, Elvis Gerbach is, though, Vinny. Isaiah Pacheco, Jawan Taylor, McCall Hardman, Jalen Watson, Chris Jones, Patrick Mahomes, Trent McDuffie, Nick Bolton, Kareem Hunt, George Karlaftis, Travis Kelce, Drew Tranquil, Justin Reed, and a partridge in a pear tree, even though we're past that season at this point.
Karlaftis and Jones. I mean, who's playing defensive line?
Well, and Bolton is and McDuffie had named her 4 best defensive players other than the middle linebacker. Well, and Tranquil too. But Chris, we see strange stuff happen in the NFL all the time. And
there's another one. Go ahead.
Denver wins. They're in. Be their first playoff appearance since 2015. Broncos are 10.5. By the way, Carson Wentz expected to get the start for the Chiefs, but reports out there hinting that Carson Wentz may only go a half, and then we would see the undrafted free agent who's in his 3rd year in the Chiefs practice squad, Chris Oludekun, out of Samford University, not Stanford, Samford University. If you know anything on Oludekun, good luck. That's all I'll say. 10.5 with Denver.
Get the film.
Well, this was another one that when they announced, so Denver was hovering around a 10-point favorite. Then they announced Mahomes is not going to dress for the game. The number jumps up to 11.
What?
I swear to God. And that's what. Do you think that a Mahomes-led Kansas City team would go into Denver and they're a 10-point underdog? Is that what you think? And the number jumped up to 11. And, well, I mean, listen, I got to take responsibility. You know, we wound up at 11. Somebody took the 11 off. I was like, you got to be kidding me. You know, I mean, yeah. So those are the kind of things that happen in this market what's the Sting song or the Police? Too much information swimming around. That's what's going on in this market sometimes. Too much information.
It's very similar to the preseason when these booking these games.
Vinny, what do you have right now? Chiefs first half?
Chiefs first half?
Yeah. That's
putting them up on.
You gonna put them up later in the week,
right, Chris?
Yeah, we're gonna put them up tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
Or maybe Sunday.
All I'll tell you is I'm going to be on Kansas City first half, assuming the number is good enough. Because
now it's probably
Yeah, my screen is decided to call it a day. So,
okay.
But
no, we don't have first halves. I got tomorrow's games.
You got tomorrow, but that
I'll probably put Sundays up tomorrow.
Okay.
6.5, 7.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take 6.5 and 6.5, 7 definitely take, but be very careful on a full game cheap bet because Chris Oludekun against this defense with the backups, probably not ending well.
Denver does have a great defense, and that they'll be hard for an untested quarterback to pick them apart.
All right, let's go to Vegas. You mentioned this earlier with the Chargers and the Raiders. If the Steelers win, this game means the Steelers beat the Bengals. This game means nothing at all for the Chargers. They're locked, 6th seed. We'll probably see a bunch of Easton Stick and Taylor Heineke if that were the case. If the Steelers do lose to Cincy, though, this is a massive opportunity for the Chargers to move up a seed line. And would they be favored on the road at Houston?
Well, I have to look. Houston's really. I've talked about it on the show. They've fallen off a cliff, but I don't know. We'll have to see.
And the way the Chargers really minimize opponents' scoring, particularly on the road.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they don't. I don't think they've allowed 20 points in a road game this year.
I think one time that was it. Yeah, so. I mean, they've been great on the road. But Chris, I mean, geez, I mean. This is 4.5 at about 4:00 here on Friday. But if the Steelers win, this is going to be, well, actually, regardless of result, it's going to be pretty different by the time Sunday comes around.
Either way. It is the Raiders, though. So
okay.
Be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful.
Yeah, but Antonio Pierce is pulling a card out of the Jets' pocket here.
He has 2 wins. So he's on a 2-game winning streak. So,
Hold up on the game, too, right, during the Steelers game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's, again, a lot of these games are preseason-y. And the next one, actually, forget this one. The next one is, I think, the most preseason-y of all. The Colts and the Jaguars. Joe Flacco's getting the start because Richardson's season is over. Boy, what a heaping mess that turned into for Indianapolis when it was all said and done.
That whole franchise right now is a mess.
Yeah, I mean, to the point where, front office, Steichen, like everyone potentially is in trouble, especially after last week's epic debacle against the Giants.
Well, I really like Steichen.
Yeah, I do too.
He's not, we'll have. I don't know. Maybe give him a pass for this year.
So 5 right now. You guys are market high. It's 4 everywhere else.
Nobody knows they're playing.
I mean, who knows? There's nothing to be said here. If you have conviction on this, good for you. I have no conviction. Again, see, this is a good in-game week. You can watch these games. It's almost like the bowl season, guys, where you can watch these games, especially the meaningless ones, and you can see pretty early who's going to give a darn or not.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to tell. And quite frankly, I actually think Jacksonville will probably be more likely to give a darn, but who the heck knows in this spot? Who knows?
Yeah, their franchise has been a debacle, too.
Well, there was a report today out of Jacksonville from a very reliable Jaguar source that said they are going to open up the bag for Ben Johnson, potentially.
Oh, really?
So,
now they need something.
Yeah. All right. This one actually does at least mean something for Atlanta. The Falcons win and the Bucs somehow lose as a 2-touchdown favorite. We will all be subjected to an Atlanta Falcon playoff game if that's the case, Chris. It was a fun game last week. Raheem Morris totally butchered the clock in the end, and quite frankly, it probably cost him the game because Riley Patterson probably makes that kick if it's 10 yards shorter and didn't save enough time, butchered the timeouts, never get the ball in overtime. See you later. Atlanta needs a mountain of help in order to get there. Carolina kind of came back to earth last week, got stomped in Tampa. Nothing wrong with this to me. It makes sense that Atlanta's north of a touchdown in this game with a total of 48.
We opened 8, they laid it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Now it's been pretty much nothing at the 8.5, but it does make some sense. But like I said, just be careful. Teams that have to win don't always win.
It'll keep going up. They're just a big teaser game, too.
Yeah, this is.
All right, let's go to Dallas next. Commanders. So Washington real quick. With that win last week, if the Commanders beat the Cowboys, the Commanders get the 6th seed, which there's a big difference between the 6 and the 7. You have to go to Philadelphia if you're the 7. If you're the 6, you're either going to Tampa or going to the Rams, who, again, I think both the Rams and the Bucs are good teams. They ain't Philadelphia, though.
They're not.
So this makes sense. Washington playing full throttle here. But remember, these Cowboys went into Landover, Maryland, in one of what was probably the weirdest game of the entire NFL season. Went in there and beat the Commanders earlier in the year in December. So
in a wild finish game.
That was the easiest under until it wasn't, and then the fourth quarter exceeded the whole total by itself. 6, Chris, with this one with the Commanders with a total of 44.
We opened 3.5 actually, but moved very quickly to 4. But they laid me the 4, went right to 5. They laid me the 6. What am I at 6 right now on this game?
Yes.
Yeah. Probably going to see 6.5 before long, but it's heading up. If you like the Commanders, you probably should wait. I think you'll get at least 6.5. You might even get 7. God only knows. But this one's on its way up, and we'll see what happens on the field. I'm not sure it's a slam dunk for either one of these teams.
Early game to, obviously teams scoreboard watching, bookmakers scoreboard watching. It's just a sign of the times. But all Washington so far probably continue.
This is one of those one of the few sides this week you can throw into a money line parlay or a teaser. I have a hard time seeing Washington losing twice to this Dallas outfit. By the way, I think Mike McCarthy saved his job. As ridiculous as that would have seemed 6 weeks ago. I think he saved. I think he saved his job. Even though last week was a train wreck. These guys, other than last week, have played really hard the last month, which wouldn't have expected with how this season has gone for the Cowboys. All right, Chris, now we get to a game I know you have something to say on.
Yeah, I do.
The Rams and the Seahawks. So the Seahawks, by the way, if they win this game and win 10 games and miss the playoffs, pretty tough luck in this 7-team format now in each conference to be on the outside looking in, but that's how it broke down. Seahawks are 6.5, total of 38.5. Jimmy Garoppolo getting the start for the Rams. You're not going to see Kyron Williams. You're not going to see the bulk of the Rams' important guys. And Chris, you can go ahead what you told us earlier, and I was as perplexed as you were when you told me.
I said when they announced that Garoppolo was going to be the starter, this number jumped up like
twice. They doubled.
Yeah, are you kidding me? We knew Stafford wasn't playing. You could tell by the number he wasn't playing. I mean, I wasn't sure it was Garoppolo, and I don't know who the other backup is, but Garoppolo is at least an NFL veteran who's been to the Super Bowl. And for this number to jump up on that news, I think is just ridiculous. And that's a game I probably would take the Rams. I think the Rams actually have a little bit something to play for, but so does Seattle. Because Geno Smith, I think has. Didn't we talk about that?
Geno needs
some
100
big incentives.
Yeah, $4 million potentially for a 10th win plus 185 passing yards. They had two separate $2 million incentives. So there is money on the line for Geno Smith.
Yeah, they ain't going to take him out unless he does it.
And I will tell you, the Rams wise, and I understand shutting it down, especially with the punishment that Stafford has taken this year. I think there is a difference there is definitely a difference between the 3 and the 4 seed. Forget the possibility of, if all hell breaks loose, the potential of hosting an NFC title game or even the second round. But there's a big difference between the NFC North runner-up in Washington to me, Chris. So even though the Rams, remember, already are one of the 2 losses that Minnesota has this year in that wild game on that Thursday night earlier in the season.
Yeah, I think they have something to play for. I think Seattle, though, I think they're going to try to win it for Geno. I think he's going to certainly be throwing the ball to try to get that 185 yards. And, but like I said, I think the number got ridiculous with news of Garoppolo playing. So I would take the Rams, look to take, a big price, maybe even a money line on the Rams.
Might even see 7.
You might.
Don't blink.
Don't.
I would, if it gets a 7, I would take it. Again, it's not like they're starting some ridiculous starting quarterback. They're starting.
He's been to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they're starting Jimmy Garoppolo, who is, by my accounts, one of the 3 best backups in the NFL.
Yeah, got to be right there.
Yeah, I mean, and look, DeMarcus Robinson will get some run. Tutu Atwell, like they have depth at wide receiver. Like they're not throwing pushovers out there, even with no Cup and no Nakua, more likely than not. All right, we can be very quick on this game. There are some incentives on the line for Kyler Murray. Needs some rushing yards. Needs a rushing touchdown to get a couple extra money in the pocket. But the Niners are thrilled to see this season end.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy won't play. No Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, who's playing quarterback?
It was either Allen or Dobbs.
I think it's Dobbs.
Yeah. Like
they're going with Dobbs.
I'm pretty sure it was Dobbs.
They're going with Dobbs.
Yeah. So, hey, that's a revenge spot for Dobbs, of course.
He has revenge against almost everybody.
Pretty much everybody. Chris, I don't know.
Nobody knows they're playing.
Who the hell knows on this one? 4.5 with the Cardinals with a total of 43.
All right, we moved it quickly. Is all I get.
Fast and furious. Yep.
All right, let's go to Houston and Tennessee. Oh, another fun one here. Hey, the Titans are favored, everybody. By the way, Tennessee clinched being the worst ATS team in NFL history last week. They've only covered 3 games this year. Incredible in its own right. 1.5 point favorites against the Texans. Remember, Titans did beat this team a few weeks ago. Expect to see a bunch of Davis Mills, Chris. You ready for that?
How about the 3 biggest running backs that got traded? Every one of their teams wound up a disaster. Green Bay wound up with
Jacobs, Raiders mess.
And
Henry leaves.
Goes to
and the Bengals were not the same.
Bengals.
No, I was going to say, the Giants got rid of
Barkley, of course, yeah. So I mean, look, even Mixon added in too. That's the fourth one. So, look, good luck on this one. If you want to, even against the Texan backups, if you want to lay $1.25 money line with this version of the Titans, go ahead.
I don't know.
Go ahead. The under might not be bad. That might be the only thing that might
one of
look
the lower
okay.
totals.
And you wonder why we're taking small limits this week.
Oh, I mean, some of these are patently ridiculous, Chris, to say the very least. All right, we'll save the good game for the end.
Yeah, good.
So the Eagles are not playing their guys, so Saquon Barkley will come up short of the Eric Dickerson record, so he's not going to play. The Eagles are 2.5-point favorites against the Giants, who inexplicably looked awesome last week on offense.
Was that you thought it was one of the greatest quarterback games?
Yes, I brought this up.
Yeah.
Drew Lock with the sixth best EPA per play game in the NFL since 1999. The rest of the list is 2 Peyton Manning games, a Lamar Jackson game from his MVP 2019 season, a Phillip Rivers game from 2007, and 2007 Tom Brady, which might be the greatest quarterback season of all time. That's what Drew Lock joined last week with that performance. It was also the best Giant quarterback game ever by margin by that metric as well.
Break up the Giants,
who, by the way, again, there have been some very angry fan bases after seeing their team win. I don't think I've ever seen Giant fans as angry as they were after that.
Like Jet fans.
Giants fell to 4, by the way. Giants can still get to the number 1 pick. They just need the parlay of New England, Cleveland, and Tennessee. You like their chances, Chris?
No.
Let's think about what you just said. How bad is that? We're talking about, okay, so the Bengals, they need help to get in the playoffs. The Giants need help to get the number 1 pick. Oh, my
There's
Lord.
so many bad teams this year.
Well,
By the way,
yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Can I make a statement?
Please.
With Saquon Barkley not playing.
Yeah.
It's become, and not just football, it's become with every sport. And I'm paraphrasing from somebody else said this earlier, but I'm going to steal their thought, and I agree with it. Championship means everything.
It was Raheem Palmer who said this.
Raheem Palmer said it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking back to Giannis Antetokounmpo and his one answer when he's had 1 championship, and I think the following year, one of the guys asked him, "Do you consider this year a failure?" The year they did not win the championship. And he had a great answer. He says, "Do you think if you don't win a championship, it's an automatic failure? Think about Michael Jordan. He won 6 championships. How many didn't he win? Like 10 or whatever? Brady has 7 championships. How many didn't he win? 10, probably more than that.
More than that. Closer to 15, yeah.
Bradshaw, Montana. I mean, when you run down the list, guys who won multiple championships. Are all those other years failures? So I, personally, with a record like this on the line, I think Barkley should have played. I think they should have played him. I mean, I think it's, is it championship or bust? So if they don't win the championship, it's all of a sudden the year meant nothing. They had a great year. They had a fantastic year, no matter what happens. It doesn't have to be 1 winner and 31 losers. I don't think it has to be that.
I'm 100% with you. I'm a little bit surprised that the Eagles actually benched him. And look at the opponent.
Oh,
another way to stick it to the Giants?
Oh, yeah.
But here's the thing, guys.
Yeah.
In this day and age,
if
he goes out
and gets hurt, everyone loses their mind.
He's had injuries.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Yeah. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying for in the world in which we live in, why risk it? And that's their mantra.
Well,
that's what they're saying.
I understand, but I'm going against the world. I think, and I think you're right.
Yeah,
that has become the mantra.
That's
you
it.
have to win a championship, or it's wasted. I don't like that thought. And I think it was Jay Billis was the first one to identify. He says, we become very good at counting. And that's one of the things that you could see. Yeah, and of course Philly. Well, they won one a couple years back, with Foles, but this would be a championship to put it on the list. But otherwise, everything else is a failure if you don't win a championship. I don't like that whole line of thinking. I just don't like it. I don't think it's good for sports. I think we see it in society, but sports should be something where we get away from some of the problems of society. And I think, I think it would have been great for a guy like Saquon. And, I know he's a Penn State guy, so of course I root for him. But he seems like a really good guy.
Yeah.
Everything we've seen from Saquon Barkley makes him look like a really good guy. And I would love to see him get the record. Nothing against Eric Dickerson, who I think was a fantastic runner, certainly in his day. But I would love to see Saquon get this record, and he's not going to get a chance to do it.
He would get overruled. But have you seen or heard Saquon come out and say, "No, I want to play"?
No.
That's just
No.
it. Yeah,
No, I know.
He gets it.
No, that's what I'm saying. He's manning up over this, but I think he wanted to play. I really do.
All right, let's go to the game that actually means something this week. And boy, does this game,
Wow.
14-2 against 14-2, where it is as good as game 272 usually is, or back in the day, 256 before we moved to the 17-game slate. These games very rarely can dictate how the NFL postseason goes. Yeah, you get some divisions clinched. Really, this goes back to when the Niners made that first Super Bowl, when Niners beat the Seahawks on the final play at the goal line. Niners ended up getting the 1 seed, made it to the Super Bowl. Seahawks actually even went out in round 1. Similar sort of thing here. Lions, Vikings. Detroit's a 3-point favorite. Total's 56, Chris. One of the higher totals of the season as well. And no shock it features the Lions, and no shock our guy Frank Nicotero's on it.
Of course.
But
I have to talk to Barry Phillips. I'm sure he bet over too.
But Chris, in a week that's full of slop on paper, this is as good as it gets than the NFL regular season.
This is a great game. This. And I heard, Mike Greenberg famously saying this is the rule. The seeding shouldn't be based on the divisions. We wouldn't have this drama if it was based on Greenberg's theory. Now, Mike, he's a smart guy and he's a huge fan, and I understand where he's coming from. But the drama created by everything that's on the line in this game has made this so important. I mean, I can't wait to watch this game, and I got to tell you, I do have a strong opinion on this game. I think in games like this, I think whoever makes more defensive plays is going to win the game, and that has to be Minnesota. And I think, even you go coaching-wise, Flores is a terrific defensive coordinator. I think they just have a better defense. Detroit's missing, 7 starters?
Half their starters.
Yeah, 7 starters from their defense. Had they been at full strength, it might be a whole different concept in my mind. But I think right now, you get games like this, and I know the total's out of whack. It's 56. But somebody's going to make a big defensive play at some point in this game, and I think that has to be – you have to think that would be more likely to be Minnesota.
The playoffs don't start next week. This is the playoff game.
Sorry, Sunday night.
This is the first playoff game of this season. So everybody's going to be involved with this game, not only in straight bets, but certainly multi-leg parlays, teasers, etc. Total's up 4 points from the opener, and you know what? I don't know if it's going to stop. Especially when you look at lying games this season, right?
Yep.
And they're never out of a game because of the fact that they can score. They just continue to press the pace.
This Lion team has turned into one of the best over teams I can ever remember because of what you both said. The Lions are a shell of themselves defensively because of the injuries, and their offense knows, hey, we got to basically score every time we have the ball. And you saw it on Monday night where their defense got the 2 turnovers on Purdy,
huge,
and that was the difference. That's why Detroit covered the game on Monday night, and the game went zooming over the total, which is not much of a shock. Even at 56, even at the highest total of the year, I'm struggling to find reasons to not bet the over in this game.
I didn't say I liked it under.
No, I know.
Somebody's going to make a big defensive play.
I totally get what you're saying, where if someone's going to make a big defensive play in this game, I think you're right. It has to be Minnesota with some sort of wacko pressure that forces Gough into an error or even a fumble.
A fumble.
Something like that.
Last week I'm watching, I said, who's going to break serve here?
Yeah, 100%. Here's all I'll say with this game, and this is a little bit of a different discussion, and I'm just curious how this impacts the future market for you guys. It feels like to me that Detroit needs the 1 seed significantly more than Minnesota does. because at least they remember that Troy Aikman made this point multiple times on Monday night. The Lions have been going since they had a week 5 bye.
Yes.
They have been going forever. And especially with the way they play, with the injuries they've encountered on their defense especially, it really feels like, okay, if they have the 1 week off, maybe they can put it together for 2 home games and then make it to the Super Bowl in New Orleans. Maybe they can do that. It feels like to me, if they lose this game and have to go on the road for 3 straight games with no break, with that defense, I think they have a very small shot of making the Super Bowl. Minnesota, on the other hand, yeah, it would help to have the 1 seed, get the bye, get to play in front of that amazing crowd they have there in Minneapolis. But as weird as it sounds, I think they can go on. They're more able with their current version of their team to go on the road and win a game, maybe even 2, maybe even steal 3. Detroit needs that bye more so than anything. I don't know how much that's handicapable, but at least if Detroit doesn't get the bye, I mean, those future numbers got to get totally tilted against Detroit at that point.
I think they will, and I would also say this, and I'd have to check my record. I didn't bring my computer with me, but I think I have Detroit with the highest home field advantage in the NFL. Pretty sure I do. I think they're 2.5, which is never 3. You won't see 3 again for a while. But 2.5 points is about as high as I go for a home field advantage, and that's what I have Detroit. So it's a huge advantage besides that week off, which makes it even much, much bigger.
There are 2 teams that you can't count out of any game in the NFL this year. The Lions is one and the Bills is the other.
Yep.
Because of their propensity to put points up.
And Gough, how come Gough gets no mention in the MVP?
Trust me, with our great MVP tickets that Ryan and I had that have absolutely no shot at this point. They're only going to go 15-2 and if they win this game with no defense. Like, he shouldn't be in the mix.
Tony, even with the rest of the card, don't forget, this is the primetime game that'll have everything going to it.
Yeah,
and everybody will be involved, like I said.
What a game. Seriously,
playoff game.
What a game to end the NFL regular season on Sunday night with the Lions hosting the Vikings. All right, that's what we got for you here today. We're back next week. We'll know by then. We'll know all the teams in the NFL playoffs. We'll know one team that is in the college football final as well.
Oh.
Because the Orange Bowl is on Thursday.
Thursday.
When are we having the Bear on? Monday?
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
We'll see when he's available.
Yeah.
We'll see when he's available this week. That might be Thursday next week if he's on the day of the game. Well, we'll make sure we have Felica before we get going on those semifinals. And, of course, this show right on this channel tomorrow morning, Alex White and I get you ready at 8 a.m. for a monster. We got those 150 game cards in college hoops starting tomorrow.
I know.
I know you're thrilled by that, Chris.
Yeah. Fortunately, I got a great crew.
Yeah.
Really, and all credit to them.
That we'll have the 2 NFL games as well. Also, an FCS title game on Monday as well.
Montana State,
North Dakota State.
Yeah.
What a battle between the old frontier between those 2 teams up in the north.
The only team in the NCAA that's undefeated, Montana State.
Yeah, now with Oregon going down, only the Bobcats remain.
Yeah.
Chris, Vinny, thank you as always. Jerry, Vince, Ryan, Drew Dog, and Sean, thank you all as always. I'm Jeff Parles. We'll see you again next time. Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.